Hey there, welcome to 21 Secrets to Retail Success. I'm your host and facilitator, Nicole Sims, and today we're on day 14. Today we're talking to Stephen Brooks, who is the pop-up expert. He has over 35 years helping brands large and small, e-commerce and brick and mortar, help them grow their stores through pop-up shops. And today we're talking about all things pop-up, how pop-up shops can be a really successful growth strategy for your small retail business. It was a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Hi, Stephen. Good afternoon. How are you?
Nicole, hello, good afternoon. I'm very, very well, and thank you for having me on what looks to be a fantastic initiative. And I take my hat off to you for bringing this all together. Well done, you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Especially coming from you. I appreciate that. Yeah, this has been a great event so far. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm so happy you decided to be a part of it because you are the pop-up expert, and I love pop-up shops. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. So I don't think it's talked about enough, even though you might think you do. I don't think so a lot of my clients do pop-ups, but they don't really think they don't know they're doing it. I'm going to this event or I'm going to this, this fair or something, not realizing that's what you're doing.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
It's a very important part of your business. I really love this conversation today. So I think it's gonna be really good for everybody looking. So let's dive in. Cool. So speaking of pop-up shops, so what do you think is the key secret for having a successful small business using pop-up shops? How does pop-up shops help small retailers be successful?
Yeah, it's a really lovely question. And it just doesn't boil down to one thing. There are so many different facets to making that successful. And it's interesting what you were just saying about, people going to a fair or people going to a something that's being put on in a hotel, or, all those sorts of things. I mean, that's pop-up in its purest form. And we shouldn't forget that actually all of retail stems from pop-up retailing, right? Back in the days of souks and bazaars and markets. I mean, that's the essence of retailing.
Yeah.
So for me, the things that are really important are, of course, location. I'm not a fan. If you're looking at malls in particular, let's just look at that for a second. I'm not a fan of anything that's near exit or entrance doors. I'm not a fan of anything that's near washrooms. And I'm not a fan, and some people say, well, why wouldn't you be a fan of this? But I'm not a fan of anything that's near a food court either.
Oh, that's different. Okay.
And people say, food courts, lots of people, milling around, but they're milling around, they're eating, and then they're going, right? And so, there are two ways of looking at it. You either want to be in with the crowd, so in with your niche. If you're in fashion, maybe you want to be in fashion. If you're in jewelry, you might want to be in jewelry, shoes, etc. Or you actually might want to stand out for the crowd and be the streetwear brand that's in amongst all of the other kind of books and jewelry and all of those sorts of things. So I think it comes down to the environment. It comes down to the mall and so on. So that's one of the things. Having your products, and I know we're probably going to talk about this in a bit more detail a bit later on, but having the product mix right, particularly if you're coming from online to inline, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the growth in this area right now. You don't need to bring in everything you've got in all the colors, in all the sizes, right?
Exactly.
Bring in your top sellers, of course, and then use technology to its best advantage. Have tablets or laptops or even just phones, if that's all you can use, for people to order that XXL or that particular color yellow that you're not carrying, that maybe you only sell one or two of a year, right? So use that technology, but use it in a way that you then bring them back to the store in order to collect rather than ship to their address. So there's the opportunity then for them to perhaps buy from you again. So that's product. Of course, anybody that's ever listened to me, and I know you've heard me say this before, Nicole, it's amazing customer service.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't matter if you're selling, you're doing pop-up shops. It doesn't matter if you're selling cars. And I've had some experience of that in the last couple of weeks. it doesn't matter if you're selling photocopiers, right? It comes down to amazing customer service,
Mm-hmm.
well-trained, well-motivated people that understand the product,
Yep.
can cross-sell and upsell.
Yep.
And if you don't know what cross-selling and upselling is, then that's a whole other
That's a
thing
whole
you
other
need to get
conversation.
into. It's a whole other conversation, right? But also, being able to, for me as well, if you don't have what the consumer wants, right, telling them where they can get it.
Yeah.
Right? And having that honesty, because they will go, wasn't that person just so helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Right? 64% of people will seek out a salesperson that gave them great advice, to give them great advice and help them purchase again.
Yeah.
Really, really important.
That's a good stat.
And then from there, obviously the promotion and the marketing of that, we have, all these platforms that we can use, Snapchat, TikTok, mm-hmm. Instagram, whatever, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I would suggest that you just hone that into maybe your top 3 or 4. Don't spread yourself too thinly amongst mm-hmm. everything, but concentrate on where you get the best results always. And come up with some exciting offers in terms of, an opening offer or a buy one, get one half price, something like mm-hmm. that stimulates action and stimulates return visits. And then really, and I think this is critical for anybody, whether you're starting your first pop-up or whether you're growing your business, know your numbers.
Yes.
Know your numbers. Have a dashboard. And if you don't know what a dashboard is, there's another conversation you got to be having with somebody like yourself or somebody like me.
Exactly.
Create a dashboard for your business so you know your numbers. And that's everything from production to recruitment to marketing to sales to profit.
Yes.
It comes as a big surprise to me how often, when I sit down for the first time and talk to a business and I said, what's your gross mm-hmm. margin?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. What's your gross margin? What's that? What's that?
Oh my God.
What were your sales last week? I'd need to look them up. I mean, as a business owner, you should know that instantly. That's got to be kind of the thing that's driving you, right? And then the other one for me, interestingly enough, is what's your exit strategy?
Good.
Right? Where are you going with this business? Because, do you see yourself doing this every day, until you get bored or until you go out of business or till you find something else, mm-hmm. right? Or do you actually have an exit strategy where and you've got a plan either for growth or to sell it on to somebody else or to, you've got a magic number, and when you get that magic number, you're out. And
mm-hmm.
that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But having something, a goal that you're going for at the end. So they're kind of the things I think people really need to focus on. There's the whole recruitment thing,
mm-hmm.
Obviously merchandising correctly, your area of expertise. And can I say, when you came on our podcast, the Pop Up podcast, I'd learned so much from that.
Thank you.
But stuff that actually, when we're in the business, we tend to take for granted, right? Mm-hmm. We forget it because we think everybody knows it.
Right.
So to be reminded of that and to learn new things for me was really good. So merchandising is obviously key.
Yes.
Signage, pricing,
mm-hmm.
And whether you're in a store or on a mall cart or on a kiosk, all of those things apply.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes. Those are really good, Stephen. However, I was taking notes on that. That was really good stuff. And I love how you say know your numbers. I think a lot of business people, whether they're doing a pop-up or not, they have to know their numbers because that's directing what you want to do in your goals. And when you said the gross margin conversation, I laughed because one of my clients, so I talked to her, okay, we're going to open your store. I'm going through the plan. So what's your gross margin right now when you buy it right now, when you're selling and you're buying your inventory? Deer headlights.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay. So we have to start there. So understanding it's not just about, selling your product and pricing it. It's all these things that make you a profitable business. You have to know what you're actually making and what you're taking home. If you pay yourself, what you're doing for advertising, what you're doing for your rent, everything, all that comes into play. And then actually helps you make your decisions for your pop-up
Yeah.
shop as well. So
Yeah, you're
that was
absolutely
good.
right. I think one of the common mistakes that a lot of people make, particularly, when they're kind of, they've got this nice little online business and they want to take the next step, is that they forget about their time.
Yes.
And they forget about the value that time is. And whilst you might look at, well, I can buy it for this, and by the time I've printed it, and by the time I've packaged, and it's X, and I can make Y. Well, if you then like track that back to, well, how long did that take you? How many days? How many hours? How many phone calls? So you've really got to know your numbers, completely, right down to production time.
Yes.
Particularly if you're going to be successful, and I've seen this happen as well, that people get it right from day one. With the exception of, I didn't realize how successful I was going to be, because now I'm scrabbling to get product in, because I've now created this machine that just wants to keep selling. So you got to understand, can I gear it up quickly? Can I put the brakes on it a little without affecting the relationship with my suppliers? All of those kinds of things. But that's the fun of running a business.
Right. That's good. Kind of picking back off of that. So what do you think is one of the common mistakes a lot of product-based businesses or small retailers make when they're trying to do a pop-up shop? Like, what are some common mistakes that you see?
The most common one I see is that they just think it's easy to do.
Yep.
And I don't say that flippantly. I mean, it's literally, well, that's easy. I just find the location. I just put my product in there, or I dress the cart. They turn the lights on, they open the doors, and people just come and buy from me.
Yep.
Everybody knows that if you want a sustainable business, it starts with the foundations that you put in the ground that you can build on, right? So all of those things that we were just talking about are all the key things that go to be the success that you're looking to have. I think the other common mistake is that people think that it won't take a lot of their time.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry. It's
no. But it's kind of like, well, it's easy to recruit a couple of people to work in store. It's not right now. Right. And if you do recruit them, knowing that they're going to turn up every day at the time they're going to be there. Right. And you're not getting the call from the mall to go, it's 12 o'clock, you're still closed, what's going on? All right.
Right.
So I think people think that it's easy, mainly because people like you and I make it look easy, because that's what we do all day long.
Exactly.
And so we know the strings to pull and the buttons to press to get it to come together. But if you don't know where those strings are and where those buttons are, then you can flounder very, very easily. I also think that people are having gone through all of that, are then underprepared for what might happen. And I also think they give up too easily. Because if you're particularly in retailing a product, because pop-ups work for services as well, but we'll come back to that in a second. Particularly in product sales, if you have a great launch and you do get that momentum coming in quickly, then that's great. And that's going to sustain you through probably the first week.
Right.
That's it. That's kind of like that's your window. Right. Now, after that, it's going to take another 2 or 3 weeks for those sales to start to build and build as you give great customer service, you got the right products, all the things that we talked about.
Right.
And I think that's where people lose focus, because they have this great opening, friends and family and everybody comes along and everybody buys something because they want to, support you, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But then that passes. Now we're left with the people that normally come into the mall, and that's why you've got to keep that marketing machine going. Obviously, but you mustn't lose focus on. We still need to be doing all of those things to encourage people to come back.
Right.
And I've had calls from people that like, this just isn't working. This just isn't like you've been doing it for 6 days. Right.
Right.
Just you're 6 days in. You got to build it.
Right.
And we know from certainly on mall carts where perhaps you're not going to have that big ribbon cutting to open a mall cart. But it will take, it will take 3 or 4 weeks for that consumer confidence to grow. Right? Because everybody sees, it's a mall cart, it's probably not going to be here next week. And so, you either hit the button because they need the product at the time, and that's great, or you need to build that consumer confidence as you go along. Different with seasonal products, and there'll be all those people that are there for 3 months over Christmas, but different with seasonal products. But you've got to stay focused about the result and allow your business to grow in that respect. From a product and service side, so the kind of lawn care guys or garage doors or home improvements, all of those sorts of things, that really does come down to your personnel, the people manning that stand, because they can't be aggressive, right? They can't, they don't want to be in everybody's faces, but they do want to be asking the right questions, and they do want to be qualifying those people in the right way. And that's very key as well. And we have a program that kind of teaches that anyway. But from a everybody thinks pop-up is retail. But I like to remind them that it works for car dealerships, it works for lawn care, it works for garage doors, it works for windows, it works for charities, credit cards, solar energy. I mean, there's this whole line item of products and services that it works for that is not considered core retail.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's really good. So kind of thinking back on that. So I like I like pop-up shops. I like the whole concept of it. And I really preach it a lot, as well as a growth tool. So what would you say would be the best way for a retailer to use, a small retailer or product-based business, to use pop-up shops to grow their business? What are some reasons they should use it to grow a business? How can I grow the business with that?
Great question, Nicole. For me, that using that pop-up format, it's the best way you can test before you invest in a long-term lease, if that's what you're looking to do. And right now, there's not really a need for that, right? And anybody that's considering getting into a 5-year lease on retail premises right now, I would say stop. Right, stop and rethink and listen to this, because I think this will make a difference. A pop-up's a controlled way of growth, right? So test before you invest on the location, test the products in your area, make sure that you can get the staff, etc., right? All those other mechanisms. But it isn't as simple as we're in Mall A and we're doing well, and Mall B is 20 miles away, so we're going to open up there. Because you have to understand the demographic, obviously the retail mix, shopping patterns are different, and so on. So we've boiled it down almost to a science that we could say, well, it's never going to work there, because everybody's very different, and you can have two malls that are literally 10, 15 miles apart where they are very, very different, and you'll just lose money. But you can control it. You can control the growth. I mean, we've taken businesses from one location to over 100 in less than 18 months, just using those principles of the right place, again, right location, but the right mall or the right premises in a strip mall or whatever it might be. But it also allows you to get out quickly. Right. So if the market changes, so let's just go back, 2 and a bit years, right? We get a pandemic coming along. Okay. Yes. Landlords were being very kind and as good as they could about, rents, but they're still going to be due. Right. If you're in a pop-up, your maximum exposure might be 3 months.
There you go.
So it's good in and out. Right. But equally, again, if for whatever reason you do struggle with staff or you do struggle with supply chain, you can turn it off. You can turn it off. but but again, the opposite applies, that you're doing well in a, you can turn it up, right?
Yep.
You can move, you can move from a 500 square foot premises to maybe 1,500, or you can move down from 1,500 to 500, subject to availability.
Right.
So it's a real way to control your growth. That I think a lot of businesses kind of forget, and from even from a merchandising point of view, you can reuse fixtures and fittings.
Right.
You can have a standard format that you can replicate. If the size is right, there are so many pluses to it, rather than we open 1,500 square feet, we get it right. Right, we need 1,500 square feet now on 3-year lease somewhere else. It's the world's changed, and that's I would encourage anybody to look at it from that perspective. Even big brands now are looking at, we don't need to be in a mall 12 months of the year.
Exactly.
But we can come back, November, October, November, December, and we have the brand recognition where we'll still make sales.
Right. Now that's good. That's really good. Yeah. I think that's actually what I wanted to say, is like, it's the way to test out either your product or what you're doing, or your an area or something, while you're being too much committed to it, but still, okay, if I'm successful, you can grow. But if it doesn't work, you're not stuck there for 2 more years.
Absolutely right.
You're not stuck there. Right? This is not the right area. Oh, maybe this is not the right product to do, especially if you're going online store and you realize this is not the right mix. Yeah. But you're stuck there. But a pop-up shop, but a temporary lease, okay, we found this out. We had the valuable information. Okay, now in 2 months I can go and figure something out. So that's what I really was hoping you were going to say.
No, absolutely. So just to touch back on common mistakes that I think people make as well, and I think you've got to factor this in with growth, is that they think it can happen overnight.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, mall owners, mall landlords are horrendously bad at getting back to people.
Oh.
Right. And for me, there are brands, mall brands out there that put so many barriers in the way. We want you to fill this form out. We want to know this. We want to know this. Look, at the end of the day, I want to know if you got a space.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Yes or no. That's all I need to know. And then the devil's in the detail, right?
Right.
So, but it doesn't happen overnight. And that's why you find that there are, people coming in to try and disrupt the industry in terms of platforms where you can get to space quicker and so on. But it doesn't happen overnight. From the day you think about, I think the pop-up shop is the right way to go, to the day that you open, could be 4 to 6 months.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, because I think what you said earlier in the beginning, a lot of people have the concept of pop-up shops as just that, like my client has going on, she's going to a fair in 2 weeks, and that's what you're doing, a pop-up there. It's just quick, easy, it's 4 days. It's very quickly to get the information. You fill out a form online, it takes 2 weeks to get approved or whatever. So they're in that mindset, well, that's what pop-up shops are. Yeah, so even if I go this direction, they're all like that. They're not. So they have to really be careful about putting everybody in the same kind of group. That's absolutely good. Right. Yeah. That's good. Great stuff, Stephen. So I know you have a free gift for our people today. Can you talk about that today for us?
Yeah. So, I'm a published author these days. Thank you. There's 5 books out there. We're in the process of writing number 6 with a lovely lady called Gulia Bulistani, who's an academic in Europe. So that's going to be out the end of this year.
Oh,
but for everybody that's part of this program, we're giving away two books, actually. One's called Pop-Up for Beginners. So it's kind of like the how-to guide to get you started. There's checklists in there. There's things that, that we've talked about today, location and marketing and so on. And then the other book is a book I wrote a couple of years ago called How I Find $10,000 in Your Business in 45 Minutes. And that's basically, sitting down with owners and really going through a process. The book explains the process. And if you'd like me to come and do that for you at any time, anybody that's listening, I'd be delighted to. But it's surprising because we rarely do we find just $10,000.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
We'll find tens of thousands in some
Oh,
businesses.
nice.
We've in a couple we've found a couple of 100,000
Oh,
just through improvements in what they're doing, but also looking at supply chain and all kinds of other things. So
nice.
and ramping up marketing and cost to sell and all of those sorts of things. So those books are completely for free. They're downloadable. I know you're going to put the link in there in the message book. When you get the link, just put books and we'll email them straight out to you. The only thing I ask is that when you get them, you let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Right. Did it hit the spot? Did you find the information valuable? Because we'll be doing Pop-Up for Beginners 2023. We'll start actually writing that towards the end of this year. And so we'll be updating that with, what new technologies are around and just some testimonies and other success stories as well.
Nice. That is amazing. So you guys getting 2 fantastic books from the pop-up expert to do pop-ups. So yeah, the link for that will be in the email you see this video in. So don't worry about that. You guys will have that. And I'll be talking about I think it's a great gift from Stephen because it's some great information. One about pop-up 101, which is great. 2 about how to find money in your business. So that's fantastic. So that's fantastic, Stephen. Thank you. So before we go, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So after someone's watching this, what's the one thing, with everything you just said, what's the one most important thing you want them to take away from this conversation today? There could be one thing to get. What would it be?
It would, well, actually, it doesn't relate to pop-ups at all.
Oh, fine.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
And this is something I tell everybody, that if it's not bringing you joy, stop doing it.
Love that.
Right. That I'm tremendously lucky, like you are, Nicole. I absolutely love what I do. I'm one of those annoying people that wants to tell everybody how much I enjoy what I do. Right. And for me, there's so much pleasure about doing stuff like this and giving back and sharing knowledge, because that's what retailers are all about. But for me, if it's not bringing you joy, stop doing it and find something that does. And that's something that I think is tremendously important, not just in business, but in life.
In life. No, that's great. I love that, actually. I love that because a lot of people, if it's something it's a passion, you'll love it. You'll start doing it. But if it's something that, I thought it was a passion, and then 2 years in, you're like, it's not filling me the way. There's nothing wrong with walking away.
Nope.
Nothing wrong with that. People feel guilty about feeling like failures or something. It's not. It's just you thought it was one thing, you've changed, and now it's something else. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
You don't want to end your days with what ifs, right?
Yes. And I'm so glad that you said that, because a lot of people are doing that. Well, I think the past environment has pushed people out on the ledge a little bit more. So I think people are being more open to that. But let's say they pushed on the ledge and then realized a year later, I made a mistake. I really don't want to do this. There's no shame. So you know what? I want to find something else that brings me joy. So I love that. Thank you, Stephen. Absolutely. That was amazing. This is a great conversation. I'm so excited for this. So yes, you guys will have the free books in the email with this video and some great information. Hook up with Stephen. He's amazing. He knows everything you need to know about pop-ups and running your businesses. It's just fantastic. So thank you, Stephen, for this conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Nicole.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. I appreciate it.
Stay well. Bye-bye.